Easy there, girl. I'll take care of you. We'll make it together.
The sun had just begun to dip below the horizon, casting a soft golden hue over the sprawling fields of the ranch. A cool breeze whispered through the tall grasses, carrying the earthy scent of the land. This was the life that Luke, the rancher, had chosen, a life of quiet solitude, where the rhythm of the seasons and the company of animals filled the days. He had always felt a deep connection to nature, finding peace in the simple tasks of tending to his animals, fixing fences, and caring for the land. Luke wasn't the kind of man who sought recognition, preferring the solace of his ranch to the noise of the world. He lived alone in the old farmhouse, his days marked by the sounds of hooves on the dirt and the rustling of leaves. The world around him felt as steady as the mountains that framed his home, yet on this particular evening something felt different. As he fed the horses in the barn, he heard a faint, desperate whinny carried on the wind, a cry that sent a shiver down his spine. It was a sound he knew all too well, one that could only mean one thing: an animal in need. Luke's heart quickened as he grabbed his jacket and made his way out of the barn. His eyes scanned the distant horizon, searching for the source of the cry. The wind carried the sound again, more urgent this time. Luke's instincts told him this was no ordinary call. A horse, or perhaps two, were out there lost, abandoned, or worse. Without hesitation, he mounted his old, trusted mare and rode into the growing darkness, the unknown ahead of him pulling him forward like an invisible force. Luke rode through the fading light, his mare's hooves clipping softly on the dirt trail as he followed the sound of the distant whinny. The wind had grown colder, carrying with it the scent of damp earth, and a chill crept up his spine. His instincts told him the cry wasn't from any of his own animals, it was different. Desperate, strained. He urged his mare faster, his eyes scanning the horizon. As he created a small hill, the first sign of movement caught his attention. A flash of chestnut brown, a flicker of motion between the trees. His heart tightened. There, in a secluded clearing, stood a mare, a beautiful creature, but gaunt and trembling, her coat matted and dull. And beside her, the foal, a tiny, fragile thing, its legs unsteady, its coat streaked with dirt and grime. Both were skittish, their wide, fearful eyes fixed on Luke, but it was the mare who seemed to hold all the pain. The scene before him was heartbreaking. The mare's ribs were clearly visible beneath her thin coat, and the foal's frail body wobbled on shaky legs, its movements slow and uncoordinated. They were alone, abandoned in the wilderness, with no one to care for them. Luke's heart clenched in his chest as he dismounted, his boots crunching against the dry earth. The mare flinched at his approach, her body tense, but she didn't run. She seemed to be too weak to flee. "Easy there, girl," Luke murmured, his voice calm and soothing as he inched closer, carefully closing the distance. He knew better than to rush. He'd dealt with skittish animals before, and trust had to be earned. The mare's eyes locked onto his, a mix of fear and desperation reflected in them. She was afraid, but she was also reaching out, silently pleading for help. The foal, no more than a few months old, stood beside its mother, its legs trembling as it struggled to stay upright. Luke's heart melted at the sight. He knelt down slowly, his hands outstretched, hoping to show them he meant no harm. The foal let out a soft, high-pitched whinny, its voice weak. The mare nickered softly in response, stepping protectively closer to her young. Luke studied them both, taking in the deep exhaustion etched in their features. The mare's coat was dull and matted, her ribs visible beneath the thin layer of fur. She was a mother, and she had been through something terrible. The foal, too, appeared undernourished and fragile, its coat dirty and clinging to its skin as if it hadn't seen a proper wash in weeks. His heart broke for them. He knew they couldn't survive much longer out here in the wild. There were no food or water sources nearby, and with the foal so young, it was unlikely it could fend for itself. "I'll take care of you," Luke whispered, his voice filled with a quiet resolve. Slowly, he stood and extended a hand toward the mare, his fingers brushing the air. The mare stepped forward, inching toward him with hesitant movements, but the look in her eyes was no longer purely fear, it was hope. The hope that a stranger, in his quiet way, could offer the care they so desperately needed. Luke nodded to himself. The decision had been made. There was no turning back now. Luke stood still for a moment, his heart racing as he took in the scene before him. The mare was breathing heavily, her sides heaving with exhaustion. Her coat, once a rich chestnut, was now dull and matted, a sign of the hardship she had endured. The foal, though weak and unsteady on its feet, nuzzled its mother for comfort, seeking reassurance in a world that had already been unkind to it. He knew time was running out. If he didn't act quickly, the mare and foal would be lost. The soft whinny of the foal broke through his thoughts, and Luke's gaze softened. There was no question in his mind. He had to help them. "I'm not leaving you out here," Luke said under his breath, his voice firm. He carefully reached into the saddlebag strapped to his mare, pulling out a small length of rope. He wasn't sure how he was going to get the mare back to the ranch, but he knew that he had to start somewhere. The mare flinched as he approached, but this time she didn't move away. She stood there, her eyes wide but trusting, as if she knew help had arrived. Slowly, Luke moved toward her, offering his hand, speaking softly. "It's okay, girl. I won't hurt you." The mare's ears flicked forward, and for a moment Luke thought she might bolt, but then, to his relief, she stepped forward. He carefully placed the rope over her neck, not too tight, just enough to guide her. The foal stayed close, its tiny steps uneven as it followed its mother. Luke paused for a moment, scanning the area. The ranch was a few miles away, but the terrain between here and there wasn't easy. Rough paths, thick brush, and a few deep ditches to cross. He had no idea how the mare and foal had made it this far on their own. They must have been wandering for days, if not longer. "Well, we'll make it together," Luke muttered, half to himself. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but there was no turning back now. Carefully, Luke led the mare forward, taking the first few steps slowly, allowing her to adjust to the rope. She hesitated at first, but with gentle encouragement, she began to move. The foal trotted beside her, its tiny hooves clicking on the ground, the sound faint but persistent. Luke kept his eyes on the ground ahead, trying to avoid anything that might startle them. As they made their way through the forested area, Luke kept his movements deliberate and calm. The last thing he wanted was to spook the animals. The mare, though weak, was still strong enough to panic if she felt threatened, and the foal needed all the stability it could get. At times, Luke had to stop and adjust his grip on the rope, making sure the mare wasn't pulling too hard. He felt a deep sense of responsibility for both of them. He could tell the mare was exhausted, her movements slower now, her breath more labored. The foal, though smaller and less capable, still seemed determined, its big eyes fixed on its mother, as if it knew this was its only chance. They reached a small creek, the water running clear and fast. Luke knelt down, scooping some water in his hands and offering it to the mare. She drank eagerly, her head lowering as her parched throat found relief. The foal stepped forward as well, its nose touching the water, its legs shaky but persistent. Luke smiled, relieved to see them both drinking. It was a small victory, but it was something. He knew they wouldn't be able to survive much longer without water, and this creek had been a blessing. As they continued their journey, the path grew more challenging. The terrain became steeper, and Luke could feel the strain in his own muscles as he led the mare up the incline. Every now and then, the mare stumbled, but she always righted herself, her will to survive stronger than her fatigue. The foal, too, stumbled now and then but was always quick to rise, determined to keep up with its mother. Despite the struggle, Luke's resolve never wavered. He was doing this for them, for the mare who had been through so much, and for the foal who deserved a chance at life. With every step, he felt a bond growing, not just between himself and the animals, but also between the land and them. This wasn't just a rescue, it was a promise. A promise that he would not let them suffer any longer. When they finally reached the ranch, Luke was nearly as exhausted as the mare and foal. The sun had long dipped below the horizon, leaving only the soft light of twilight to guide them as they crossed into the safety of the barn. The warm, familiar scent of hay and wood greeted them, and the horses, though tired, seemed to recognize the comfort of the space. Luke led the mare into the stable, her hooves scraping softly on the stone floor as the foal followed close behind. The animals were finally home, and as the barn doors swung closed behind them, a sense of calm settled over the rancher. He'd made it, he had brought them both to safety. He unlatched the rope from the mare's neck and gently led her to an empty stall. She stood there for a moment, trembling, before lowering her head to nibble at the hay beneath her. Luke watched her, his heart heavy with a mix of relief and concern. She was clearly weak, her bones jutting out beneath her coat, her legs shaky from the long journey. He turned to the foal next, whose eyes were wide with curiosity. yet it too seemed exhausted. Its small frame was fragile, and Luke could see the signs of malnutrition. He had to act fast to help them both. First, he went to the old medicine cabinet and pulled out a bottle of antiseptic and some bandages. The mare had minor cuts and abrasions along her legs, likely from walking through rough terrain or thorny bushes. Luke worked quickly, applying antiseptic to her wounds with careful hands, making sure not to cause her more pain. The mare flinched, but she didn't pull away. Her trust in him, though still tentative, was growing with each gentle touch. Once the mare was settled, Luke turned his attention to the foal. He gently lifted the foal's head, inspecting its eyes for any signs of infection or injury. The foal was hungry, its ribs were visible under the thin coat of fur, and its body trembled from both exhaustion and fear. Luke's heart ached at the sight. He quickly fetched a bottle of milk replacer and a small feeding dish, making sure the milk was warm and fresh. As he offered the bottle to the foal, Luke spoke softly, trying to reassure it. "Come on, little one. It's okay. You're safe now." The foal hesitated at first, its nostrils flaring as it sniffed the milk. But hunger eventually overcame its fear, and the foal began to drink eagerly, its tiny hooves tapping nervously against the barn floor. Luke watched with a sense of satisfaction, relieved that the foal was able to eat. He made sure both animals had plenty of fresh water, setting bowls in front of them, and watched as they drank deeply. The mare was slower to drink, but she eventually lowered her head and drank in long, steady gulps. It was clear they both needed nourishment, and Luke was determined to give them everything they needed. For the rest of the night, Luke stayed in the barn with them. He kept a soft light burning in the corner and periodically checked on the pair. As the hours passed, the mare seemed to relax, her breathing evening out as she lay down in the straw. The foal, now full and no longer trembling, curled up beside its mother, its small body curled into a tight ball of warmth. Luke sat on a nearby bale of hay, watching over them. The barn was quiet, save for the occasional rustling of hay or the soft breath of the mare. He allowed himself a moment of peace, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. It wasn't just the act of saving them, it was the quiet bond that had already begun to form between them. The mare and foal were no longer just animals in need, they were a part of his life now, and he would see them through this journey, no matter what it took. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. They would need time to heal physically and emotionally. But Luke was determined to do whatever it took. In the quiet of the barn, as the night deepened around them, he made a silent promise to the mare and her foal. They were safe now, and he would be there for them every step of the way. Days turned into weeks, and with each passing day, the transformation of the mare and foal became more and more evident. What had begun as a fragile rescue, with two malnourished and fearful creatures, was slowly blossoming into a story of healing, trust, and new beginnings. Luke spent long hours in the barn, tending to their needs. He carefully monitored their progress, watching as the mare's coat began to regain its luster and the foal's legs grew stronger. The bond between them all deepened, built on the quiet moments of care and patience. The mare, once skittish and wary, now sought Luke's presence. She would nudge his shoulder gently as he entered her stall, as if to say, "Thank you." There were still moments when she flinched at a sudden movement, but the fear in her eyes had softened, replaced by a quiet trust. She had learned that the rancher would not harm her or her young. The foal, too, began to show signs of change. At first, it had been slow and unsure on its legs, but now it trotted around the barn with growing confidence, its coat becoming fuller and shinier. The once timid creature, who had clung to its mother for comfort, now pranced playfully in the morning light, kicking up small clouds of dust as it explored its new world. Luke often found himself smiling at the foal's antics. Its curiosity seemed limitless, as though it was discovering life all over again. The mare watched over her baby with a protective gaze, her body language softer, more at ease. She would graze in the pasture during the day, always keeping the foal close, but the pair had become inseparable. The foal would follow its mother everywhere, mimicking her movements, learning from her in the silent, tender way animals do. At night, Luke would often sit on the fence outside the barn, watching the two of them, mother and foal, standing side by side under the starlit sky. They were not the same creatures who had stumbled onto his ranch weeks ago. They had found their way back to life, not just through food and care, but through something deeper. And in that quiet, sacred space, Luke realized that he had changed too. His connection with the mare and foal wasn't just about rescuing them, it was about the way they had healed his own heart. Together, they were a new family, a bond forged by shared struggle and compassion. As the weeks turned into months, the transformation of the Mare and Foal became a living testament to the power of patience, compassion, and second chances. The once fragile Mare had regained her strength. Her coat gleamed in the sunlight, her body firm and sturdy beneath the newfound muscle. The Foal, no longer a trembling, uncertain creature, now ran with a carefree spirit, its legs strong and steady as it frolicked in the pasture beside its mother. Luke had watched the remarkable change with a quiet pride, knowing he had played a part in their journey. The bond between them, unspoken but unbreakable, was something he would carry with him for the rest of his life. In the early mornings, when the world was still wrapped in mist, Luke would walk through the fields, the Mare and Foal following at his heels, their steady hooves a rhythmic reminder of how far they had come. The Foal, now no longer a baby, would nuzzle against him in greeting, its soft muzzle brushing against his hand in a silent thank you. The Mare, ever protective, would stand by, her watchful eyes warm but unwavering. The ranch had become their home, just as much as it was Luke's. The three of them, though so different, had come to understand each other in a way that words could never explain. In rescuing them, Luke had found his own healing, his own peace. On quiet nights, when the stars hung bright above the ranch, Luke would sit by the barn, watching the Mare and Foal together. It was in these moments that he realized the true meaning of rescue wasn't just about saving a life, it was about creating a new one, full of love, trust, and a future forged together.